The Black Pearl, Part 1. Chapter 1. The Betrayal of Cleopatra. Alexandria, 30 BCE. The Roman fleet loomed on the horizon like a blade about to fall. Inside her chamber, Cleopatra paced, draped in obsidian silk. The sound of soldiers shouting orders outside the palace walls grew louder, closer. Alexandria was falling. She turned to her most guarded possession, a black pearl kept in a carved onyx box. It pulsed faintly, almost alive. Legend said it had been formed in the mouth of a god. Others claimed it could speak. Cleopatra had never listened until today. Holding it up, she looked into its surface. Her son's face appeared, Caesarion, heir to both Caesar and Egypt. But something was wrong. His eyes were hollow, his lips twisted in contempt. Betrayer, the pearl whispered. Cleopatra dropped the jewel onto the table, stumbling back. Sweat gathered at her temples. She ran to the hidden alcove in the wall and sealed the pearl inside a compartment behind a gold-plated panel. She carved the eye of Horus into the edge with a blade, her hand trembling. Then she turned to the table where the poison waited, bitter sap, venom, and the last of her royal honey. Her hands were steady now. As the guards pounded the door, she downed the vial. When they broke through, they found the Queen of Egypt sprawled on her silken couch, her lips blue, her eyes glassy. But the black pearl was gone, buried behind the wall, bound by her last words. Whosoever wears this in betrayal shall see their end first. Chapter 2. Rome burns gold. Alexandria, 30 BCE, after the fall. Smoke curled through the halls of Cleopatra's palace as Octavian's soldiers looted everything that glittered. Marble busts were smashed, scrolls thrown into fire, and golden icons stuffed into sacks like common plunder. Among the chaos, one soldier moved with a different purpose. His name was Titus Varro, an ambitious legionary with dead eyes and a scarred jaw. While the others ransacked blindly, Titus slipped into Cleopatra's private chambers. He wasn't looking for treasure. He was following a rumor. The whisper of a jewel that spoke. It took him hours to find it. He pried open wall panels, slashed through silks, and finally, behind a golden scarab emblem, his blade scraped stone. Inside, a hidden box. The black pearl lay nestled in velvet, darker than pitch, gleaming like an unblinking eye. Titus smirked. His fingers closed around it. That night, they made camp near the harbor. 5 soldiers gathered around a stolen fire, drinking stolen wine. Titus sat with them, the pearl tucked in his tunic. They joked, bragged, passed coins. Then one of them, Gaius, reached for Titus's cloak, curious about the bulge. "What VE you got there?" Titus said nothing. His face had gone pale. "Give it here." Gaius reached for the pouch. Titus stabbed him. Once. Twice. 3 times. The fire crackled as Gaius dropped, gasping. The others screamed, lunging to stop him. But it was too late. Titus moved with savage precision, slitting throats, crushing windpipes, until the blood soaked the sand. Then silence. Titus stood alone, chest heaving, pearl clenched in his hand. He dropped to his knees, staring into its surface. His reflection stared back, only it wasn't him. It was a skull, grinning. He screamed. By morning, only a blood-stained tunic and an empty box were found. The pearl was gone. Again. Chapter 3. The pearl resurfaces in Byzantium. Constantinople, 532 CE, the imperial court of Justinian I. The black pearl did not remain buried. It never did. Nearly 6 centuries later, in the glimmering heart of the Byzantine Empire, the jewel surfaced again, wrapped in faded silk, passed from one trembling hand to another until it reached a merchant of rare antiquities known only as Myron. No one knew where he found it. No one asked. But everyone wanted it. And one woman always got what she wanted. Empress Theodora, consort to Emperor Justinian, commanded presence the way a lioness commands the savannah. When she entered the grand market, cloaked and veiled, no one dared block her path. She had heard of the black pearl in whispers, its mystery, its beauty, its curse. She demanded it. Myron tried to resist. "I beg you, Your Eminence, this is no mere bauble." She cut him off with a single gold coin. And a second one for silence. The pearl passed into her silk-gloved hands. That night, in her private chamber, Theodora removed her veil and jewels. She held the black pearl under candlelight, turning it slowly. It reflected nothing, then everything. She smiled, amused. So this is the infamous relic. She brought it closer to her eye. A flicker. Not her own face. Her sister's. Antonia, dead 2 years. Poisoned, some said. But Theodora knew the truth. Antonia had fallen ill during a court banquet, moments after a petty argument over who would attend the emperor at the next feast. Antonia had laughed and left early. Theodora had stayed and made sure the laughter stopped. She dropped the pearl. It rolled across the floor, stopping beneath a tapestry. Shaken, Theodora retrieved it, heart pounding. Over the next few days, her appetite vanished. She slept fitfully. Court attendants whispered about her frayed temper, her sudden screams at empty rooms. She claimed someone was watching her in the mirrors. Then, one afternoon, she summoned her personal attendant. "Fetch the pearl," she ordered. The girl returned moments later, pale as parchment. "There's no pearl, my lady." Theodora turned, ready to scold her. But in the mirror across the chamber, she saw her sister standing behind her, smiling. She gasped. The mirror shattered. 3 days later, the empress collapsed during a banquet. Wine spilled, nobles gasped, and her fingers curled over nothing. The physicians blamed poison. The palace buried her with her finest robes and her grandest crown. But not the pearl. It had vanished again, this time without a trace. Chapter 4. A Secret Auction in Venice. Venice, 1490 CE, the Night of Masks. Venice was a city of secrets, and the men who ruled them wore masks. In a candlelit chamber beneath a crumbling monastery, 12 buyers gathered in silence. Each cloaked, each masked, each invited through bribery or blackmail to the most exclusive black market auction in Europe. A place where relics traded hands, curses were whispered like currency, and history's lost sins could be bought for the right price. Tonight's item was unlike any other. The Black Pearl of Cleopatra, the auctioneer announced, drawing back a velvet cloth. Gasps swept the room. It shimmered like polished oil. Light avoided its surface. Some swore it pulsed. They all wanted it. But one man didn't plan to buy. His name was Lupo, known across the canals as Il Fantasma. A masked thief, lean and quick, with fingers that never left prints. He'd heard of the auction weeks ago, bribed the right guards, slipped into the monastery hours early. And now he waited above the chamber, pressed between beams, watching the chaos below. The bidding began. A Spanish duke offered 10,000 florins. A French baroness countered. A masked Medici agent raised the stakes. The auctioneer smiled. Lupo didn't wait. Smoke bombs dropped from his sleeve and burst in blinding clouds. Screams echoed. Nobles scattered. In the confusion, he swung down on a rope, kicked the table, and snatched the pearl midair before vanishing into the dark. He made it to a hidden cellar on the north side of the canal, laughing as he ran. His heart pounded, hands shaking as he locked the door behind him and placed the pearl on a table. "You're mine now," he whispered. The pearl did not respond until he looked into it. At first, he saw only his face. Then, as the candle flickered, he saw someone else. His own mother, dead since his childhood, staring at him through the pearl's reflection. But her mouth was wrong. Wide. Snarling. Moving silently. Lupo stumbled back. "No, you're not real." The mirrors lining the room began to warp. His reflection twisted, then shifted again, his own face now pale, decayed, eyeless. He screamed and lunged for the pearl, but as his fingers touched it, the candle went out. By dawn, local guards were called to investigate strange noises. They found Lupo's body on the floor, eyes burned black, mouth frozen in a silent scream. No sign of forced entry. No sign of struggle. Only the mirrors, each one perfectly intact, except for one. It refused to show any reflection at all. The Black Pearl was gone. Again. Chapter 5. Catherine de Medici bids. Lyon, France, winter, 1562 CE. The room smelled of smoke and secrets. Beneath the city of Lyon, far from the eyes of kings and papal spies, a second auction had begun, one that did not appear on any official scroll or ledger. The vault was dimly lit, torches burning blue with witch's salt. Heavy stone columns lined the chamber like silent judges. At the center, a crimson velvet pedestal. On it sat a single object. Small, unassuming. A black pearl. A ripple moved through the gathered nobles and occult dealers, as if they could all feel it, an invisible thread drawing tight in their chests. But none dared reach for it. Except one. Queen Catherine de Medici stepped forward, surrounded by 3 of her loyal guards, each dressed as ordinary merchants. Her veil was thin, her dress black as mourning. She had arrived in Lyon under the name Madame Duret, but no one was fooled. Her presence froze the room. The auctioneer, a pale man with yellowed teeth, gave a shaky bow. "Maj, madam. The object is yours, of course. No bidding necessary." Catherine smiled faintly. Of course. She stepped to the pedestal and studied the pearl without touching it. Her eyes narrowed. "I thought it would be larger," she said softly. "It is not the size," the auctioneer croaked, "but the weight of its history." Catherine's fingers twitched. "Box," she ordered. One of her guards produced a small steel case lined with dark velvet and protective sigils drawn in sacred ink. She placed the pearl inside, shut the lid, and turned away without another word. No one followed her. They wouldn't dare. Back at her estate in the Loire Valley, Catherine dismissed her guards and sealed herself in her private study, a circular room of alchemical books, celestial charts, and 24 mirrors, all draped with cloth. She placed the steel box on a desk beside her grimoire and slowly opened the lid. The pearl was still, waiting. She picked it up and stared into its surface. Nothing happened. She tried again, turning it in the light, muttering a Latin incantation under her breath, a relic from her studies with the astrologers of Florence. Still, nothing. Then, from the corner of her vision, a flicker. She turned to the nearest mirror and saw it. Her reflection. But not quite. It was smiling. And she wasn't. Catherine stood frozen, staring at her own face, until her reflection blinked. First, her hand flew to her dagger. But the mirror was just a mirror now. Her breathing slowed. She clutched the pearl tighter. She did not sleep that night. Or the next. She ordered all mirrors uncovered. She wanted to see what came next. Chapter 6. The Reflection Changes. Chateau de Chenonceau, France, days later. Catherine de Medici had seen many things in her life, assassinations, betrayals, wars started with a whispered word. But none of it disturbed her as much as this single object resting in her palm. The black pearl. She wore it now on a delicate gold chain that never left her neck. She claimed it was a token of mourning. No one questioned her. In the early days, she studied it like a scholar, stared into it for hours. She wanted to understand it, control it. Instead, it began controlling her. At first, the visions came only at night. Candlelight flickering off polished glass. A faint shimmer in the surface. A movement in the corner of a mirror. Then the faces started to appear. Not strangers. Her children. The first time it happened, she was brushing her hair at the grand vanity in her eastern chamber. The reflection beside her moved just slightly out of sync. She paused. Looked again. It was Elizabeth, her daughter. Pale, tear-streaked, lips trembling. "Elizabeth," Catherine whispered. The reflection did not answer. It stared. Accusing. Then vanished. The queen slammed her fist into the mirror, cracking it in a spider web of shards. The next day, she saw her son, Charles, his face flushed and twisted in anger, the way he looked the day he struck his tutor with a goblet. His eyes in the pearl were black pits. "Stop," she hissed, throwing the pearl against the stone wall. It didn't crack. It never did. She retrieved it, hung it back around her neck. That evening, as she prepared for court, she looked into the pearl again. This time, her own face stared back. But something was wrong. Her skin had grayed. Her eyes were bleeding. Her lips curled upward in a smile she did not recognize as her own. The pearl pulsed. She stumbled back from the mirror, shaking. "I am not afraid of you," she whispered. But that was a lie. Every mirror in her chambers was now uncovered. Every morning, she inspected each one, looking for differences. And every day, there were more. She saw the same image in different mirrors, herself aged, dying, rotting, whispering things she couldn't hear but always seemed to understand. One morning, her maid found her sitting in front of the largest mirror, mumbling Latin verses and bleeding from both palms, scratched raw from digging her nails into the arms of the chair. The maid said nothing. Catherine paid well for silence. But word spread among the staff. The queen was unraveling. And still she wore the pearl. Like it was the only thing keeping her together. Chapter 7. The Assassin and the Pearl Thief. Paris, 1562 CE, the Queen's Chambers, midnight. Mark didn't believe in curses. He believed in locked doors, loose coin purses, and the thrill of surviving one more heist. A thief of some reputation, young, fast, charming as the devil, Mark was no stranger to risk. But even he hesitated when he heard who the client was. "She wants what?" he asked, nursing cheap wine in a Montmartre tavern. The Queen's pearl, the contact whispered. Mark raised an eyebrow. And I suppose she keeps it in a jewelry box on her nightstand? The contact slid him a pouch, heavy with gold. She wears it around her neck. You'll have 10 minutes. Mark grinned. At midnight, he was inside the Louvre. It wasn't luck. It was precision. Mark knew the guard shifts, the hidden crawl spaces, the one window that hadn't been repaired since the last storm. He moved like smoke, barely a sound, barely a shadow. The Queen's chambers were dimly lit. The scent of rosemary and death lingered in the air. There she lay, Catherine de Medici, curled on a velvet chaise, asleep but tense, like a snake pretending to rest. The pearl glinted at her throat, pulsing faintly. Mark reached. A floorboard creaked. He froze. The Queen stirred but did not wake. He held his breath, fingers inches from the chain. Then steel. A knife touched his throat from behind. Too slow, a voice whispered. Female. Cold. He didn't turn. Let me guess, not a maid. I'm no maid, the woman said. And the pearl isn't yours. Mark ducked, twisted, and kicked. The blade missed by inches. He lunged, snatched the chain, and ripped it from Catherine's neck in one motion. The Queen gasped awake as Mark leapt through the drapes and into the hallway. The assassin was behind him instantly. She moved like death, silent, fast, deadly. Mark vaulted a railing, crashed through a stained glass window, and hit the ground hard outside the palace wall. A horse waited. He rode. Through alleys. Over bridges. Into the night. He didn't stop until he reached the edge of the city and plunged into a forgotten crypt beneath the old cathedral. There, in the flicker of torchlight, he stared at what he'd stolen. The black pearl. It pulsed. He touched its surface. And for a brief second, just one, he saw something. A girl. Dark hair. Noble clothes. Eyes full of fire. She stared back at him through the pearl. Then she vanished. Mark blinked. He didn't believe in curses. But something told him he'd just stolen one. Chapter 8. The Queen's Shadow. Paris. Days later, the Office of Secrets. The Queen was not amused. Catherine de Medici paced her study like a storm barely caged. Servants trembled at her voice. The king dared not ask what had been stolen. Only one person entered her chamber unannounced, and only because she was summoned. Isabeau. She stepped through the heavy doors soundlessly, dressed in widow's black, her boots wet from the river fog. A silver dagger hung at her hip, not for ceremony. Whoever stole the pearl, Catherine said without looking up, was clever. Isabeau remained silent. But not clever enough. He touched it. Still silence. Catherine finally turned. Find him. Kill whoever gets in your way. And return what belongs to France. Isabeau nodded once. Her name was whispered across Europe. The Queen's whisper. The widow's dagger. Poisoner. Interrogator. Ghost. Isabeau didn't track people. She hunted them. Her first stop was the broken stained glass window in the eastern wing. Her gloved hand traced the glass edges, still wet with blood from the thief's landing. She knelt. Examined a footprint in the soil, one heel cracked, a scrape of flint lodged in the edge. A street boot. Southern leather. Worn down on the left. She stood, already walking. By dusk, she was in the slums of Montmartre. One alley was littered with stolen fabrics. Another stank of wine and bad meat. Isabeau followed the trail like a wolf, interrogating tavern keepers, bribing stable hands, strangling 2 informants when they gave her lies. Each death brought her closer. By midnight, she knew his name, Marc Dervaux, a petty thief with a reputation for charming noble daughters and vanishing with their rings. Amateur. She found the crypt by morning. But the thief was gone. All that remained was a half-burned torch, horse tracks leading east, and a single fingerprint on a discarded wine bottle. She held the bottle up to the torchlight and saw it, the mark. It wasn't wine. It was blood. The pearl had already begun to take its price. She returned to Catherine's study without knocking. He's fleeing Paris, Isabeau said. He has the pearl. He's alone. Catherine turned from the window. Then catch him. And do not fail me. Isabeau nodded. But her eyes drifted for just a second to the Queen's throat. It was bare now. And Catherine's reflection in the mirror behind her was smiling. But she wasn't. Isabeau said nothing. And left. Chapter 9. The Chase Through the Catacombs. Paris, beneath the streets, nightfall. Marc Dervaux didn't like to run. He preferred to vanish. But ever since he'd stolen the black pearl, vanishing had become impossible. The air behind him felt colder. Shadows moved when they shouldn't. People stared too long. He couldn't tell if he was being followed by soldiers or something worse. He needed to disappear, truly disappear. And in Paris, that meant the catacombs. A hidden grate behind the chapel of St. Sulpice led to a forgotten entrance, rusted hinges, a stone staircase, darkness that swallowed torchlight whole. Mark climbed down, one hand on the pearl tied beneath his shirt, the other gripping a rusted dagger. The smell hit him first, damp limestone, decayed flesh, dust older than memory. He lit a torch and stepped into a maze of bones. Thousands of skulls, neatly stacked, watched him like a silent jury. He kept walking. A day passed. Then two. He slept on stone, drank from dripping pipes, ate stale bread. The pearl whispered sometimes nonsense words, half-formed names. At first, he ignored it. Then he began answering. On the third day, he found a pool of black water, a mirror in liquid. He stared into it. The pearl pulsed against his chest. And there, across the surface of the water, he saw her. A woman. Elegant, terrified, staring back at him as if she could see him too. Her reflection was lit by moonlight, but Mark was deep underground. Her lips parted like she might speak. He blinked. The water rippled. She was gone. He sat down, heart pounding, and reached into his coat to pull the pearl free. "Who are you?" he muttered. No answer. Just a reflection. Not his. Above ground, Isabeau was closing in. She'd interrogated a gravedigger who saw Mark disappear near the south cemetery wall. The man said nothing useful until she pressed a hot coin against his throat. Now, she moved through the catacombs without hesitation, mapless, fearless. The pearl's echo had touched the tunnels, and she could feel it. Like smoke. Like blood. Like fate. She moved in silence, blade drawn, torch low. Rats scattered at her feet. Bones crunched beneath her boots. She found the place Mark had been 2 hours after he left it. But something else found her. A shadow behind a pillar. A whisper that wasn't hers. The pearl's trail wasn't clean. It was jagged, full of false reflections. She turned into a corridor of mirrors. How could there be mirrors underground? She blinked. Stone again. But the illusion left her shaken. The queen had underestimated the artifact. So had Isabeau. Mark, meanwhile, reached the surface through a broken aqueduct near the eastern cemetery wall. He gasped as fresh air hit his lungs. Dawn broke over Paris. He climbed a hill to watch the sunrise and saw her again. The woman from the pearl. She was riding a carriage below, dressed in pale blue silk, tears streaking her face as a cruel-faced nobleman shouted beside her. Mark watched the carriage disappear down the boulevard. The pearl, in his palm, was warm. And when he looked at its reflection again, he didn't see himself. He saw her. Chapter 10. Anaïs's Reflection. Paris, the Montmartre district. Same morning. Anaïs de Montluc sat frozen in front of her vanity, staring into the mirror like it had just slapped her. She had always hated mirrors. They reminded her of her mother's warnings. Beauty invites expectation, she used to say. And expectation is a knife. Today, Anaïs saw something else entirely. It wasn't her face. Not exactly. Her reflection looked back, but it shifted when she didn't. Her eyes blinked a second too late. Her smile curved into something unfamiliar. Then the face changed entirely. For a single, heart-jolting instant, the image in the mirror belonged to her fiancé, Baron Gerard de Chauvigny. Only it wasn't his real face. It was warped, beastly, his jaw stretched unnaturally wide, his eyes ringed in black, like a man rotting from the inside out. His mouth moved, soundless. Then the image snapped back to hers. Anaïs gasped, stumbling away from the vanity. The mirror stood still, silent, mocking. She threw a perfume bottle at it. Glass shattered. Her maid burst into the room. "My lady." Anaïs didn't answer. Her heart thundered. Her skin felt too tight. This wasn't the first sign. The letter had come the day before, delivered without a seal, and signed, and slid beneath her door during a thunderstorm. "The pearl has chosen you." She had thrown it into the fire. Now, she wasn't so sure. Gerard arrived for breakfast as if nothing was wrong. His powdered wig perfect, his hands ringed with gold, his voice smooth as spoiled butter. "You're pale today, darling. Are you sick?" Anaïs stirred her tea without looking at him. "Do you know anything about a pearl?" she asked. He paused, then smiled. "I've given you many jewels. Have you finally misplaced one?" She said nothing. That evening, she pretended to rest. When the house went still, she crept into the west wing, where Gerard kept his private study. She picked the lock. She wasn't supposed to know how. Inside, she found nothing unusual until she opened the bottom drawer. A notebook. Pages torn out. The remaining ones filled with frantic sketches. Of mirrors. Of faces that weren't quite human. Of a black pearl drawn over and over with the same words beneath. She sees me. She sees me. She sees me. Anais slammed the book shut. A creak behind her. She turned. Gerard stood in the doorway, his eyes colder than moonlight. I told you, he said softly, not to look through my things. Her breath caught. He stepped closer. She ran. Out the door, down the stairs, into the street barefoot, heart hammering. As she passed a mirror in the hallway, she saw it again. Not her reflection. His. Smiling. Waiting. And in that moment, Anais knew. Someone or something was using the mirrors. And she was next. Chapter 11. A chance meeting in the rain. Paris, the Western Gate, near midnight. The storm hit without warning. Rain crashed down like judgment from the sky, turning cobblestone streets into slick rivers of filth and runoff. The kind of night when secrets bled into gutters. The kind of night people disappeared. Marc Dervaux ran through the dark like a shadow with a heartbeat, soaked to the bone, every step echoing with one thought. Get out. Get away. Stay alive. The Queen's soldiers were everywhere now. And not just soldiers. He'd seen her. The woman in black. The one who didn't blink. He didn't know her name, but he knew she was hunting him, and that she wouldn't stop until his corpse was cold. Still clutching the pearl beneath his cloak, Mark sprinted down an alley and crashed into someone. Both fell to the ground. He swore, hand already on his knife, until he saw her face. Anais. She was drenched, disheveled, barefoot, and beautiful in a way that cut through panic. She scrambled to her feet, eyes wide with terror. Don't hurt me, she gasped. Mark stepped back, stunned. I'm not trying to. Then he saw it too, the carriage up the street. The one with the coat of arms of Chavigny. Its doors flung open. A man shouted in the distance. Are you being followed? He asked. Yes, she breathed. You. Always, he said. Come on. They ran. Through winding alleys, under bridges, across abandoned markets, until they ducked beneath a collapsed balcony and caught their breath. She clutched her side, panting. Who are you? Mark, he said between gulps of air. Thief. Idiot. Currently cursed. She blinked. What? He pulled the pearl from beneath his cloak. It gleamed under the lightning. Anais stared. That's it. You've seen it before? No. But I've seen what it does. He handed it to her. The moment her fingers touched it, everything changed. The pearl glowed faintly, and her reflection vanished. They looked around. No mirrors. No glass. But the puddle at their feet, slick with rainwater, showed only one person now. Mark. Anaïs's reflection was gone. She gasped, dropping the pearl. What did it do? Mark picked it up again, staring at her with wide eyes. I don't know. But I think it's choosing. Choosing what? Us. A pause. And then she said the one word neither of them wanted to admit out loud. Why? They found temporary shelter in the ruins of an old bell tower. Dripping, shaking, exhausted, they sat in silence. Mark watched Anais from across the room. She was strong, fierce, angry in a way he understood. But there was something else in her eyes, something deeper than fear. Revelation. He handed her his coat. She handed him the truth. About Gerard. About the mirror. About the drawings. Mark listened. And when she finished, he held up the pearl again. Maybe we weren't meant to find it, he said. Or maybe it was meant to find us, she replied. Outside, the rain kept falling. But something inside them had already changed. Chapter 12. The Pact of the Pearl. Paris outskirts, the ruined bell tower, pre-dawn. A storm faded into mist by morning, but the city did not quiet. Paris was beginning to stir, its whispers returning to the streets, and its hunters sharpening their knives. Inside the ruined bell tower, two fugitives watched the light seep through broken arches. Mark leaned against a pillar, twisting the pearl between his fingers. It looked harmless now. Small. Silent. But he knew better. He'd seen what it could do. So had Anais. She sat on a cracked stone bench across from him, arms crossed tightly, still barefoot, her gown caked with mud. She looked like a ghost of her old life. I can't go back, she said at last. Mark nodded slowly. Good. Because I won't let you. Anais glanced at him, uncertain. You barely know me. I know enough, he said. You saw what it showed us. That wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. To what? To find out why we're in this, Mark said. Why the Pearl wants us. Anais stood and walked toward him, her eyes sharp with defiance. You think it wants us for a reason? I think, he said, holding it out, we're the only ones who haven't died from touching it. A long silence followed. The wind whistled through the bell tower. Distant church bells rang across the city. Anais stared at the pearl in his palm. I dreamed about you, she whispered. Mark blinked. When? Before I met you. Just flashes. Your face. Your voice. This thing. She pointed to the pearl. I thought I was going mad. But now I think I was being pulled. Mark slowly nodded. Then we make a pact. What kind of pact? We don't run from this anymore. We stop letting the pearl choose. We follow it. Together. Figure out what it wants, what it's showing us, and then we decide what to do with it. Anais hesitated. And if we decide it's too dangerous? Then we destroy it, he said. Can it be destroyed? I don't know, Mark admitted. But we'll find out. She stepped closer. Their eyes locked. Then it's a pact, she said. No more running. No more lies. He offered his hand. She took it. And just like that, the pact was sealed, not with blood, not with magic, but with desperation and something dangerously close to trust. But across the city, the Queen's poisoner had already found their trail. Isabeau stood in the wreckage of the cathedral crypt where Mark had first hidden. Her gloved fingers traced the damp walls. Ashes still clung to the stone. She sniffed them once. Then again. Ginger root. Damp clay. And blood. Her eyes narrowed. They had gone underground. But they had come back up. She turned to her informant, a thin man with the teeth of a rat. Where did he go next? She asked. I heard from the boy at the bakery. Said he saw a man and a noble girl running toward the bell tower. A dagger flashed. He dropped, dead before he hit the ground. Isabeau wiped her blade and turned toward the horizon. She was close now. Too close. And the pearl was beginning to show her things as well. Things she didn't want to see. That night, Mark and Anais slept side by side beneath the cracked ceiling of the tower, wrapped in silence and stolen warmth. In his dreams, Mark saw Anais standing in a hall of mirrors, blood on her hands. In hers, Anais saw a crown. And fire. Neither told the other. Not yet. But the pact had been made. The pearl had chosen. And it was far from finished. Chapter 13. The Poisoner's Trap. The southern road out of Paris dawned. They left at first light. Mark and Anais traveled on foot, cloaked in stolen garments from a clothesline near the river. No horses. No carriages. Nothing that could leave a trail. The plan was simple. Disappear into the countryside, find answers, stay ahead of the Queen's shadow. But by midday, the trap had already been set. Isabeau had planned it perfectly. She waited at a fork in the forest road, where the canopy grew so thick the sun never touched the ground. Dressed as a healer, a basket on her arm, her face smudged with dirt, she looked harmless, until she didn't. The village ahead was called Valmont. A stop for water, food, and nothing more. But it would be enough. The innkeeper had been bribed. The stable boy threatened. The wine tainted. All she needed now was for them to come. Mark and Anais arrived by dusk, hungry, cold, exhausted. The village looked peaceful enough. Wooden houses, lanterns flickering, children chasing geese. A lullaby in disguise. They didn't see the man at the well lower his eyes too quickly, or the woman sweeping her porch signal with her broom handle. But Isabeau saw everything. She entered the tavern minutes after them, cloaked, silent, smiling behind her veil. Anais sat near the fire while Mark dealt with the innkeeper. I'll get a room, he said. And a bottle. Anais nodded, staring into the flames, holding the pearl beneath her cloak. She felt it pulse once hard. Like a warning. She turned. A woman sat in the corner, watching her. Too still. Too calm. Anais stood. Mark. But it was too late. The innkeeper smiled too widely. The wine was already poured, and the door behind them had just locked. Mark took a sip. His legs buckled instantly. Anais screamed. He hit the floor hard, eyes rolling, the goblet crashing beside him. She reached for the dagger in her boot. And Isabeau was already there. Fast. Precise. The blade touched Anais's throat as the poisoner whispered, "Scream again," and he dies slower. Anais froze, eyes wide. Isabeau knelt beside Mark, pressing 2 fingers to his throat. Alive. For now. She stood and turned to Anais. "You have no idea what you're holding," she said, eyes flicking to the pearl beneath Anais's cloak. "That thing has ruined empires. Then why do you want it?" Anais hissed. Isabeau said nothing. She simply reached for it. Anais clutched it tighter. "You'll have to kill me." "No," Isabeau whispered. "Just show me." She yanked the cloak aside, and there it was. The pearl. Unblinking. Dark. Isabeau stared into its surface. And saw Catherine, but not as she knew her. Catherine de Medici stood in a vast hall of mirrors, screaming, her skin peeling back in layers, her reflection refusing to obey her. She clutched her own face as it laughed back at her. Isabeau staggered back. The vision vanished. Anais didn't hesitate. She kicked Isabeau hard in the stomach, grabbed Mark by the collar, and dragged him toward the door. The pearl glowed in her hand, almost guiding her. She reached the stable, threw Mark onto a waiting horse, snapped the reins. The horse screamed as it bolted down the dirt road, hooves thundering through the night. Behind them, Isabeau stood breathless, dagger in hand. Not chasing, just staring at the pearl's last reflection, burned into her vision. The queen. And something else behind her. Something worse. Across every empire, every forgotten age, stories still whisper. If this tale stirred your spirit, leave a like to honor the echoes of the past. Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice weaves a new legend into the sands of time. And subscribe to our YouTube channel Historical Fantasy Stories, where myths walk beside history, and every discovery changes the world. The next forgotten legend is waiting to be found.